In this discussion, we'll talk about the asana known as Navasana, boat posture. Now, this posture is a very strengthening pose, and it's the kind of posture that people often dread when they come into their Ashtanga practice at this segment of the sequence, because it does require a lot of strength, both in the core and in the hips, as well as flexibility of the hamstrings. We don't often think about it as touching upon the hamstrings because we don't feel the stretch there, but it really has a lot to do with our hamstring flexibility. Let's start with straight legs, shaking out the knees, and then we're going to bring our knees right up to our chest. Try to bring your knees as close to your throat as you can and give yourself a good hug. When approaching the posture of Navasana, we don't sit on our sitting bones. We're sitting between our sitting bones and our tailbone. Now, if you're newer to this, you might want to hold on to the big toes, keep your knees close, and extend the legs halfway. This is known as half boat, making the shin bones parallel to the floor. Keeping the knees together will involve strength in the inner thighs, known as the adductors. Try to roll the shoulders back and keep that V shape with your thighs and torso. And just the half boat alone is very strengthening. Now, to do full boat position, we want to extend the legs up into the air. So you can take hold of the big toes or the edges of your feet. With an inhale, slowly start to straighten your legs. This is where the hamstrings really are involved. If our hamstrings are tight, we won't be able to straighten our legs, or we might start rounding our backs to do so. It's much better to keep your back straight, a little arch there, and bend your knees if you have to. In this way, the boat posture might look like this. If you have the flexibility, extend the knee joint and do the boat posture this way. Now, after you've done boat in Ashtanga, we generally do a lift, Lolasana, sometimes known as the pendulum. But moving in Lolasana is very challenging. So let's just approach the lift from without having to swing at all. So again, after you do your boat positions, you can hug your knees but cross the ankles this time. Let your ankles be loose. Take your hands forward of the hips. The problem people often have, the mistake people make, is they take their hands too far back. So if your hands are beside your hips, it's very challenging to lift up. You don't have the leverage. You want to take your hands forward and then lift. If you don't have that core strength, and this is really much more about core strength than it is about shoulder strength, then you'll want to keep one heel on the floor. You can flex your ankles, take the hands forward, and roll, lifting up in this way. Let's look at it all together. Give yourself a hug, extend, find boat, and hug in. You'd want to hold boat for 5 breaths, however. Now, once you're in Lolasana, if you can, lift and rock. And after doing that rocking motion, you would come back into boat. So you can rock, and then come right back into boat, jumping through. And again, Lolasana. Feel free to leave a heel on the floor. Doing these postures together, one after another, over the course of time, whether you leave both heels on the floor or just one, is going to create core strength, both for your stomach and lower back, as well as shoulder strength. And that type of movement, done repeatedly, 5-6 days a week, will add a lot to your practice.